They said it was a ceremony, but it felt more like a test. The desert wind rolled through the forward base in Helmand, stirring dust into the dry Afghan air. Troops gathered in silence. No one laughed, no one spoke. A row of commanders stood behind the flag. In the center, her Lieutenant Alina Makarov, 29 years old, flawless record, sharpshooter qualification, 3 tours, and today she was being honored, at least. That's what the orders claimed. Then the SEALs stepped. Forward, Chief Petty Officer Dean Riker, a veteran with eyes, like steel in a chest full of ghosts. He didn't smile. He simply nodded and read the order. Lieutenant Makarov, remove your tactical vest. Whispers broke through the air. Even the wind paused. Alina didn't hesitate. She unclipped the vest from her shoulders, lifted it over her head, and dropped it to the ground. Her tan shirt clung to her back, sweat darkening the fabric. Then came the next command. Remove the shirt. Stand at ease. A few soldiers turned away, unsure if this was some punishment or tradition. Alina remained calm. Her fingers worked the buttons slowly. She slid the shirt down her arms. That's when it happened. From across the circle, Riker's eyes locked on the mark. A tattoo. Ink faded from the sun, but unmistakable. An eagle, its wings spread wide, claws clenched around a strange Cold War insignia, black, sharp, violent. He'd seen it before, but not in decades. Not since 1986. The SEAL leader's jaw tensed. He took one step forward. Turn around. Lieutenant. She obeyed. The tattoo stared back at him, burned into her spine, between her shoulder blades. Exactly, like the files he once guarded with his life. Exactly, like the mark that was supposed to have been erased from existence. Only one unit had ever worn that tattoo. Phantom Vortex. And they were never real, officially. Just a rumor, a whisper, a black ops team used during the final years of the Cold War, disavowed, disbanded, or more likely, buried. Alina stood tall. No fear, no shame. Her breathing was steady. Riker's voice dropped to a near whisper. Where did you get that ink? She met his gaze. Her reply was, quiet, family. He felt the chill crawl down his spine. She didn't just know about the unit. She was connected to it. Bloodline. That wasn't just a tattoo, it was a statement. The younger soldiers looked confused. The older ones, the ones who had served during the late 80s, early 90s. They stared as if seeing a ghost. One of them, a sergeant from the logistics team, muttered under his breath, "That can't be real." Riker turned toward command, his face pale, his voice tight. Who authorized this ceremony? No answer. Not a single commander spoke. Alina kept standing, stripped down to her combat pants, boots planted in the dirt, arms loose at her side. Every scar on her shoulder spoke of years in the field, but that tattoo, that was the real wound, the one that never healed. She didn't speak again. She didn't need to. That mark had already shouted louder than any medal ever. Could Riker step back? His mind raced. The last time he saw that insignia was in a sealed envelope, marked eyes only, a file that was supposed to be destroyed, burned in a CIA vault. So how did this woman, a U.S. Army lieutenant, end up with the same ink? And more importantly, why now? She finally spoke. Her voice was calm, clear, unapologetic. You wanted the truth, she said, glancing around at the stunned faces. Now you've seen it. And then she picked up her shirt, buttoned it slowly, deliberately, as if rearming herself with her silence. The sun hit her eyes. But she didn't blink. Behind her, Riker couldn't move. That tattoo had shaken him deeper than any explosion ever had, because if it was real, if that woman truly bore the mark of Phantom Vortex, then history hadn't ended. It had just been waiting, and now it was walking among them. Only one man in that crowd knew what he was looking at. Chief Riker had spent 30 years trying to forget it. Now it was back, inked, on the spine of a soldier half his age. Phantom, Vortex. The name alone used to make enemies disappear. Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it ran black ops so deep, even the Pentagon lost track, and now, here it was, carved into a woman's back like a ghost returning to collect. Riker couldn't sleep that night. His cot creaked every time he turned. He stared at the ceiling of the command tent, but all he saw was the past, the mission that was never debriefed, the team that was never named, and one man in particular, Colonel Yuri Makarov. Alina's last name wasn't a coincidence, it couldn't be. He remembered Makarov. Not as an enemy, not even as an ally, but as something worse, someone who knew too much, too soon, and tried to run. By sunrise, Riker made the call. He walked into tactical operations, waved off the two junior analysts, and locked the door behind him. He connected the secure line, the kind of line you don't dial unless you're ready for consequences, a voice answered after the second. Ring, calm, American Deadly, Langley. This is Riker, deployed in Helmand. I have a situation, he said. Go ahead. We have a soldier, Army, lieutenant, female, tattooed with Phantom Vortex insignia. Silence. Then, repeat that. She's got the mark. Same eagle. Same Cold War sigil. Back of the shoulders. Clear as day. Another pause. Who authorized her to wear it? That's the problem. She claims it's personal. Says it's family. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the voice came back colder. If that mark is real, she's not just a soldier. She's a variable. Extract her. Or kill the story. The line went dead. Riker stared at the screen. He'd just been given a silent order. One he never thought he'd hear again. Back in the barracks, Alina was lacing her boots. Her movements were precise, automatic. Like every action carried weight, she didn't know it yet. But the ghosts of her father's past were waking up all over the world, and someone, maybe more than one, was already trying to erase her again. She had known it might come to this. That's why she had the files, hidden, encrypted, buried in plain sight inside a flash drive disguised as a religious pendant. It was her father's cross, worn by him the day he vanished. Recovered by U.S. forces from the wreckage of a burned helicopter, or so the official story said. Alina had been just 5 when she was told he died. A training accident. No body, no ceremony, just a folded flag sent to a Moscow address that no longer existed. But 2 years ago, everything changed. A Russian defector, old, limping, covered in shrapnel scars, was captured during an intelligence sweep in eastern Ukraine. Before he bled out, he whispered to an American intel officer, "Tell the girl." Makarov lived, Phantom Vortex, betrayed by his own. That message reached her, and she knew. The silence wasn't truth, it was a cover-up. The files she recovered later proved. IT photographs, mission maps, off the record. Transcripts of meetings between Soviet and American operatives. And, in the center of it all, her father, alive. Then, missing, then erased. The tattoo was never meant to be public. It was her way of carrying him. A warning and a promise. Riker waited outside her quarters that morning. When she opened the door, they locked eyes. "We need to talk," he said. She nodded once and followed him. They walked to the edge of the base, near the fuel drums, away from listening ears. "Who gave you that tattoo?" he asked. "No one. I had it inked 2 years ago," she replied. "Why?" She looked out at the horizon, the sky just starting to turn gold. "You ever lose someone and feel like the silence was the loudest part?" Riker didn't answer. She continued. "My father was Colonel Yuri Makarov. You know that name, don't you?" His face didn't move, but his fists clenched. "I was told he died in '91, but I found a drive in an old safe house near Samarkand. It had your picture in it, standing next to him. You were smiling." Riker didn't deny it. "I was young. Thought we were ending the Cold War. Thought we were making peace." "We weren't," she said. "You were burning evidence." He nodded slowly. "I was ordered to." She held up the pendant around her neck. "The cross. I'm not here to burn anything. I'm here to find out why my father died." And who killed him? Riker stepped back. This wasn't just a soldier with a personal tattoo. This was a daughter chasing the trail of a buried war. And now, the trail was leading straight through classified lies and him. She traced the edges of the worn dog tag with her thumb, the cold metal a sharp contrast to the warmth of the morning sun. It was the only thing she had left from her father, Colonel Yuri Makarov, and it was her lifeline to a past shrouded in secrets and shadows. Alina had grown up with stories whispered in hushed tones, fragments of a life that seemed more myth than reality. Her mother's eyes would darken when his name was mentioned, and her family photos showed a man she barely remembered. Officially, he had died in a helicopter crash during a training exercise in 1991. The truth, she now knew, was far more complicated. As she stood near the base's perimeter, Chief Riker's gaze never left her. He was a man haunted by his own ghosts, the weight of decades in clandestine warfare etched into his weathered face. He had known her father, not just as an officer, but as a man who had tried to defy the very system they both served. "I remember the day he disappeared," Riker said quietly. "It wasn't an accident. It was a setup." Alina's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Riker took a deep breath, the kind that carries memories too heavy to hold. "Your father was part of Phantom Vortex, a unit so secret even most of our own didn't know it existed. They were tasked with operations behind enemy lines, missions that blurred the lines between allies and enemies. Yuri believed in something more than the orders he was given. He wanted peace, but he found betrayal." Her heart pounded. "Betrayal by who?" Riker looked away, eyes scanning the distant mountains. "By the very people who sent him. The CIA, the KGB, both sides wanted to keep their secrets buried. When Yuri tried to defect, to bring the truth to light, they labeled him a traitor. They erased him," Alina swallowed hard. "But why? What truth? Evidence of backdoor deals, covert operations that prolonged the Cold War unnecessarily. Your father had proof. Files, recordings, contacts within both agencies who wanted out." He paused, voice lowering. He thought if he handed them over to the Americans, it might end the cycle. But it didn't. No. Riker's voice cracked with regret. The safe house was compromised. He was supposed to be extracted. Instead, they left him to burn. Alina's fists clenched. Why didn't anyone come back for him? Because those who knew were silenced. Riker's eyes met hers, fierce and tired. "I was part of the extraction team. I saw the fire. I held his dog tag afterward." He reached out, his hand hovering over the one in her palm. "I lied to protect what was left." She didn't pull away. For a moment, the desert seemed to still. Two soldiers bound by loss and betrayal, standing on the edge of a secret that could shake nations. "I need to see the files," she said. Riker hesitated. "They're buried deep, classified beyond clearance. If they surface, it could reignite old conflicts." Alina's voice was steady. "I'm not just a soldier anymore. I'm a daughter seeking justice." Riker nodded slowly. "There's one place you might find what you're looking for, an old safe house in Samarkand. It's been dormant for years, but the last operation there, it was more than a mission. It was a trap." Her eyes flashed with determination. "Then that's where I'm going." The journey to Samarkand was long and treacherous. Alina moved through dusty streets and forgotten alleys, the echoes of history whispering in the wind. The city was a mosaic of faded grandeur and hidden dangers, a place where the past refused to die. At the edge of town, beneath crumbling stone walls, she found the safe house. It looked abandoned, but the scars of conflict were clear, bullet holes in the doorframe, scorch marks on the walls. Inside, the air was thick with dust and secrets. Alina's fingers brushed over a weathered map spread across a cracked table. Lines and codes scribbled in fading ink marked locations she barely understood. She plugged the flash drive into a battered laptop, holding her breath as the screen flickered to life. Files flooded the screen, videos, documents, encrypted messages. There was her father, younger and resolute, shaking hands with American agents. Names she recognized, names she had only heard whispered. And then she found the recordings, her father's voice. Calm but urgent, speaking about peace agreements sabotaged, Operatives turned double agents and plans to keep the Cold War alive for profit and power. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to look away. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. She spun, hand on her sidearm, but it was only Riker. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said, voice low. "I'm not afraid," she replied. "You should be," he warned. "There are people who will kill to keep this buried." Alina closed the laptop. "Then I'll make sure they don't get the chance." They left the safe house with the files secured. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city, a reminder that even in darkness, truth could still find its way. As they boarded the helicopter back to base, Alina looked out over the horizon. The war was far from over, but now she had a weapon more powerful than any gun. The truth, and she was ready to fight for it. The helicopter blades sliced through the thick Afghan air. A steady rhythm beneath the rising tension inside the cabin. Alina sat rigid, clutching the encrypted files like they were the last link to her father, and to the truth that had been buried for decades. Beside her, Chief Riker's eyes scanned the horizon, but his mind was somewhere far darker. Back at the base, the atmosphere had shifted. Rumors spread like wildfire, the whispered question on every soldier's lips. Who was Lieutenant Makarov really? Why was she carrying secrets that even the highest echelons wanted to kill? The commanders avoided her gaze, and the intelligence officers suddenly became distant. Alina felt the weight of invisible eyes watching her every move. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was a threat. That night, she found herself alone in the dim light of the briefing room. The walls were cold, the silence louder than any explosion. She opened the files again, piecing together her father's final mission. The same mission that had cost him his life. A covert operation meant to expose a network of double agents embedded deep within NATO and Soviet intelligence. A mission so dangerous even the CIA and KGB wanted to bury it forever. Alina's fingers trembled as she reached for her phone. She called her mother, the woman who had kept so many secrets locked away. "Mom," she began, voice steady despite the storm inside. "I found his files. I know the truth about Dad." The line was silent for a moment, then a soft sigh. "Alina, some truths can destroy us." "I'm ready," her mother's voice cracked. "Your father was a hero, but the enemy wasn't just the Russians. It was the people who sent him, the ones who traded lives for power." Alina's heart ached, but her resolve hardened. This was bigger than her. It was about justice, about honoring her father's sacrifice. The next morning, as dawn painted the desert in hues of blood and gold, Alina prepared for a mission unlike any she had faced. She wasn't going to fight an enemy across the battlefield. She was going to fight shadows inside her own government. Riker stood beside her, his face grim but unwavering. "You're walking into a hornet's nest." "I know," she replied. "But if I don't, who will?" They entered the command tent, faces guarded as they approached the base's intelligence officer, Captain Ellis, a man with a reputation for loyalty but also ruthless efficiency. Ellis's eyes flicked over the files Alina carried. He smiled thinly. "You know, Lieutenant, some things are better left buried." Alina met his gaze. "Not this." Ellis leaned in, voice low but threatening. "You're playing with fire. The moment these files go public, you and everyone you care about become targets." Riker stepped forward. "We're not backing down." The room grew tense, but Alina's voice cut through the silence. "This isn't about politics. It's about truth. About stopping history from repeating itself." For hours they debated, planned, and prepared. The files needed to be extracted, secured, and leaked strategically. Any misstep could mean disaster. As night fell, Alina returned to her quarters. The tattoo on her back burned with a familiar fire, an emblem of the legacy she was now forced to carry. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A shadow moved outside her window. Her training kicked in instantly. She grabbed her sidearm, moving silently to the door. The base was supposed to be secure. How had someone gotten this close? She stepped outside into the cool night air. Nothing. But in the distance, a figure disappeared into the darkness. Alina's heart pounded. The hunt had begun. The next days were a blur of whispers and close calls, anonymous threats, surveillance, and a growing paranoia that no one was truly safe. Riker became her shadow, watching every corner, every face. They both knew the deeper they dug, the more dangerous their path became. One evening, during a routine patrol, Alina's unit was ambushed. Explosions ripped through the air, bullets flying in a deadly rain. She moved like a ghost, precise, fearless, protecting her team with every breath. In the chaos, she spotted the insignia, a symbol she'd seen before, in the form of an enemy sniper's patch. A message. The enemy wasn't just local insurgents, they were operatives sent to silence her. Back at base, the threat escalated. Security protocols tightened, but the line between friend and foe blurred. Trust became the rarest commodity, Alina, and Riker devised a plan to smuggle the files out. Through a trusted contact, someone deep inside military, intelligence willing to risk everything. Day of the transfer arrived. Tension thickened the air as Alina met the contact in a deserted warehouse near the airstrip. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. Ambushed, chaos exploded. Bullets shredded crates. Screams pierced the night. Alina dove for cover, heart racing, adrenaline burning through her veins. She fired back, every shot a prayer to her father's memory. Riker arrived seconds later, suppressing the attackers with deadly accuracy. They fought their way out. The files secure, but barely. Back on the helicopter, Alina stared at the city lights fading below. Her mission was far from over. She carried more than just a tattoo now. She carried a legacy, one that demanded justice, and she was ready to face whatever came next, because some scars run deeper than skin, and some wars are fought in the silence of truth. The fight had only just begun. Alina's breaths came fast, the hum of the helicopter drowning out the pounding in her chest. The files were safe, but the enemy was closer than ever. She wiped the sweat from her brow and looked at Riker. His eyes held the same fierce determination she'd seen the first day they met, but beneath it was something heavier, a shadow of regret. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, voice low. "Whoever's after you has resources." "High-level resources," Alina nodded. She knew this wasn't just about her or her father anymore. It was about exposing a conspiracy that could shake governments and topple careers, maybe even lives. Back at the base, the mood was tense. The higher-ups barely spoke to her. Whispered meetings stopped when she entered rooms. She was a living threat, carrying secrets people wanted buried. Yet no one dared confront her openly. Late one night, Alina found herself alone in the mess hall. The soft clink of cups and murmured conversations surrounded her, but her mind raced. She pulled out the encrypted files, scrolling through the evidence again. Her father had discovered a network. Spies planted deep inside NATO command. Men and women selling secrets for cash, power, or political advantage. The files named names, dates, and operations sabotaged by their own people. She saw a photo of a man she recognized, General Martin Hughes, a decorated war hero who had recently been promoted to a key NATO post. The same man who smiled for cameras while secretly betraying his country. Alina's hands trembled. How deep did this go? Suddenly her phone vibrated. An unknown number. She answered. A distorted voice whispered, "Drop the files. Walk away or you won't see tomorrow." The line went dead. Fear wasn't new to her, but this threat was personal. They wanted her to quit, to vanish, to silence the truth. She looked at her tattoo in the mirror. The eagle's wings spread wide across her back. Fierce and unyielding, she would not back down. The next day, she met with Riker and Captain Ellis in a secure briefing room. Ellis's expression was unreadable as Alina laid out everything she knew. "This goes to the top," Ellis said. "If these files leak, it could destabilize alliances." Riker leaned forward. "Or it could clean house, root out corruption," Ellis hesitated. "Or create chaos." Alina fixed him with a steady gaze. "The truth is worth the risk." Suddenly, the door burst open. Soldiers swarmed in, weapons drawn. "Stand down!" Riker barked. "What's the meaning of this?" A young officer stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope. By order of the Joint Chiefs, Lieutenant Makarov is under investigation for unauthorized possession of classified materials. Alina's heart sank. They were turning on her. Ellis's face betrayed no emotion. "I knew this would happen," Alina whispered. Riker's jaw tightened. "They want to isolate you." Before anyone could react, alarms blared. The base was under attack. Explosions rocked the compound. Alarms flashed red. Chaos erupted. Alina grabbed her rifle and sprinted towards the armory, her pulse pounding. Riker was right behind her. Outside, the enemy forces had infiltrated the perimeter. Highly trained mercenaries equipped with advanced gear. It was clear. Someone inside had betrayed them. Gunfire cracked through the air. Alina's unit rallied, firing back with everything they had. Through the smoke, she saw a figure moving swiftly, planting explosives near the communications tower. "No!" she shouted, racing toward the saboteur. She tackled the man, pinning him to the ground. The mask came off. It was Captain Ellis, his eyes cold, calculating. "Why?" she demanded. He smirked. "Because some secrets are worth protecting, by any means necessary." Riker arrived, cuffing Ellis. "You're finished," Ellis spat. "You think this ends here? The real war is just beginning." With the saboteur detained, the base secured, Alina and Riker faced a grim reality. They were up against more than corrupt officers. They were fighting a shadow network willing to kill to keep the truth hidden. As dawn broke, Alina stood on the base's rooftop, the cool wind tugging at her jacket. She stared out at the vast desert stretching endlessly before her. Her tattoo felt heavier now, not just a mark of her father, but a symbol of her own resolve. She whispered to the wind, "I will finish this. For him, for all of us." Behind her, Riker approached quietly. "The next step," he said, "is to take this fight where no one expects it." Alina turned, eyes blazing. "Then let's make them remember the name Makarov. Because in the end, some stories refuse to be buried, and some warriors never stand down." The cold air bit at Alina's skin as she stood on the rooftop, watching the first rays of dawn bleed over the desert. The base was still buzzing from the night's attack, a stark reminder that the enemy wasn't just outside the wire. It was inside. Corruption, betrayal, shadowy alliances that stretched beyond borders. She turned to Riker. "What's our next move?" He lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his hardened face. "We need to hit them where it hurts. Their networks. The people backing Ellis. If we can expose them, the whole operation falls apart." Alina's mind raced. "That means going deeper. Into hostile territory. Into the lion's den," Riker nodded. "And it means going off the books. No support from command." She felt the weight of that choice. No backup, no safety net. But this was the path her father had walked, the same one she was forced to follow. They moved fast, assembling a small team of trusted operatives, women and men who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Alina's tattoo, usually hidden beneath her uniform, was now visible beneath a lightweight tactical vest, a symbol of defiance, a reminder of why she fought. Their target was a clandestine meeting rumored to take place in the mountains of northern Afghanistan. A gathering of corrupt officials, arms dealers, and double agents orchestrating the web of lies Alina was determined to unravel. The journey was brutal. Rugged terrain, hostile weather, and constant threats from insurgents and mercenaries hired to protect the network. Every step forward was a battle of endurance and will. At night, around a small campfire, Alina would pull out the dog tag, worn smooth by years but still carrying her father's initials. She whispered stories to it, the memories of a man who believed in honor, in sacrifice, in truth. One evening, as the wind howled through the rocky pass, her second in command, Sergeant Maya Ortiz, approached quietly. "You're carrying more than just a mission, aren't you?" Alina glanced up, surprise flickering in her eyes. "You mean the tattoo?" Maya nodded. "I've seen it before, a rare emblem. It's a legacy," Alina sighed. "My father, he was a ghost in these wars. A man hunted by both sides." Maya smiled softly. "Then you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for all of us." The next morning, they reached the rendezvous point, a secluded valley shrouded in mist. The air was thick with tension, every shadow a potential enemy. Using night vision goggles and encrypted radios, Alina's team moved like phantoms, circling the meeting site. From a hidden vantage point, they watched as a convoy of black SUVs arrived, heavy with armed guards. Men in tailored suits stepped out, faces familiar from the files, including one man Alina recognized instantly, General Hughes. Her pulse quickened. The traitor in uniform, smiling and shaking hands with those who betrayed their countries, Alina signaled the team. We take them by surprise. No mistakes. The operation was precise. Silenced weapons, swift movements, disabling communications before chaos erupted. Gunfire shattered the morning calm. Men shouted orders, scrambling to respond. Alina moved like lightning, taking down guards with ruthless efficiency. But then, the unexpected. An explosion rocked the area. Throwing her off balance, smoke and dust filled the air. From the chaos, a figure emerged, a woman with cold eyes and a calm demeanor. Her voice cut through the noise. Lieutenant Makarov, I've been expecting you. Alina's breath caught. The woman's face was tattooed with the same eagle emblem, though it was faded and cracked. Who are you? Alina demanded. A ghost from your father's past, the woman replied. Someone who knows the cost of truth. The woman stepped forward, revealing herself as Major Lena Kovalev, a former operative of Phantom Vortex. Presumed dead for years, Kovalev's eyes softened briefly. Your father saved my life, but his choices led to his downfall. Alina's heart tightened. Why help me now? Because the same forces that hunted him hunt you, and because I believe it's time to end this, once and for all. Together, they fought through the chaos, covering each other as the enemy regrouped. Kovalev's knowledge of old trade routes and secret hideouts proved invaluable. When the dust settled, Alina stood amid the captured leaders, the files in her hand heavier with new evidence. But the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high. Friends wounded, trust tested. As the sun dipped below the mountains, Alina looked to Kovalev. What now? We bring this to the world, Kovalev said. Expose the rot. But be ready. The fight will follow you everywhere. Alina nodded. Her tattoo burned with pride and pain. This was no longer just a mission. It was a legacy, a war between shadows and light, and she was ready to carry that fight, wherever it took her. The helicopter's rotors thundered against the sky as Alina sat silently, the weight of the mission pressing down on her. The captured leaders, now shackled and silenced, represented more than just enemies. They were the gatekeepers of a corrupt empire that had infiltrated governments and militaries alike. But the real battle was far from over. Truth was a fragile thing, and those in power would stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. Back at the safe house deep in Kabul, Alina and Kovalev pored over the seized documents. Every page told a story of deceit, covert arms deals, assassinations masked as accidents, operatives traded like chess pieces in a deadly game of power. The lines between friend and foe blurred as names surfaced. Politicians, generals, businessmen entwined in a web of treachery. Alina's hands trembled as she traced the name of one particular figure, Senator Caldwell. His public face was that of a patriot, but these files painted him as a key architect behind the clandestine operations. The revelation shook her to her core. We have to get this to the right people, she said quietly. Before it's too late. Kovalev's gaze hardened. And if those people are the ones orchestrating this? Alina swallowed hard. Then we have to expose everything ourselves. The room grew heavy with the weight of the decision. Going public meant risking everything, reputation, safety, even lives. But Alina knew there was no turning back. That night, as the city below flickered with lights, Alina's phone buzzed. A secure line. An encrypted message blinked on the screen. Meet at the old embassy, midnight, alone. Her pulse quickened. Was this a trap or an ally? Riker's voice crackled through the radio. Alina, you sure about this? I have to find out, she replied. If we don't play this right, the whole operation collapses. Midnight cloaked the ancient ruins of the embassy in eerie silence. Alina moved cautiously, senses alert. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. A man, his face partially hidden. "You're brave," the man said, voice low. "Or foolish. Who sent you?" Alina demanded. "No one," he smiled thinly. "I'm here to help." "But time is short." He handed her a data drive. "Inside is proof, video recordings, audio files, direct evidence linking the conspirators. But you won't get far with those files. They'll come for you first." Alina's heart pounded. "Why help me?" The man's eyes were haunted. "Because I lost someone to this lie. Because sometimes the truth has to come from within." Before she could respond, a gunshot cracked through the night. The man fell, a bullet tearing through his chest. Alina dove for cover, her training kicking in instantly. Figures emerged from the shadows, masked mercenaries closing in. She fought hard, but outnumbered. The data drive slipped from her grasp as she scrambled to escape. Gunfire echoed, and pain seared through her side. In a final burst of adrenaline, Alina slipped into the narrow alleyways. Disappearing into the city's labyrinth, bleeding, breath ragged, she reached a safe point and retrieved the drive. Riker was waiting. "We need a medic." Alina shook her head. "No time, we move. We get this to the media. The public deserves to know." The following days blurred into a whirlwind. Every broadcast, every news outlet was flooded with explosive revelations, proof of the deep-rooted corruption, betrayals of trust, and the faces behind the shadows. The world reacted. Shockwaves rippled through governments. Investigations launched, arrests made. But the victory was costly. Alina's injury worsened. She found herself isolated, surrounded by people she didn't know if she could trust. Friends from the military whispered warnings. Allies disappeared overnight. One evening, as she lay in a sterile hospital room, the door creaked open. A familiar figure stepped in. Her mother. Tears welled in Alina's eyes. "Mom?" Her mother smiled softly, placing a hand on her daughter's tattooed shoulder. "You did what he couldn't. You made him proud." Alina's voice was barely a whisper. "At what cost?" Her mother's eyes hardened. "At every cost necessary." Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of fire and hope. Alina knew the fight wasn't over. The system was still broken, but for the first time, the shadows were shrinking. She closed her eyes, feeling the legacy of her fathers. Courage pulsed through her veins. She was no longer just a soldier or a daughter. She was a beacon, a warrior who stood tall even when stripped of everything else, because some truths demand sacrifice, and some stories refuse to die. Alina stood at attention, the weight of the metal heavy against her chest. The ceremony was held in a solemn hall bathed in the soft glow of chandeliers, flags hanging proudly behind the podium. Faces from all ranks filled the room, but the silence was thick with unspoken truths. She scanned the crowd, searching for familiar eyes. Riker's steady gaze, her mother's proud smile, but mostly she felt the presence of her father watching over her. The medal wasn't just for valor in combat. It was for the courage to stand against the unseen enemy, the betrayal that nearly destroyed everything she loved. The room erupted in applause as the general pinned the medal, but Alina barely heard it. Her mind was elsewhere, tracing the long road from that first moment when she stood stripped in public, exposed and vulnerable, to this moment of recognition. Her tattoo, now visible beneath her dress uniform, had become a symbol far beyond ink on skin. It was a testament to resilience, to sacrifice, to the fight for truth. Every line told a story of a daughter, a soldier, a woman who refused to be broken. After the ceremony, Alina found herself alone on the balcony, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. The city lights stretched out beneath her, a tapestry of life continuing despite the battles fought in shadows. She thought of the faces she had lost, the friends who had given everything, and the future she was still fighting to protect. Riker joined her quietly. "You did it," he said simply. Alina smiled faintly. "We did it." He looked out over the city. "But the real work starts now," she nodded. Exposing the truth is only the beginning. Healing the wounds, rebuilding trust, that's the harder fight. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft beep from her phone. A message from an unknown number. "You're not alone. The fight continues. Stay strong." Alina's heart skipped. A reminder that allies were still out there, hidden, waiting. Months passed. The revelation sparked investigations at the highest levels. Corrupt officials faced trials. The military and intelligence communities underwent painful reforms. But with every victory came new threats, new challenges. Alina returned to active duty, this time as a mentor to young recruits, women and men who would carry the torch forward. She taught them not just tactics and discipline, but the importance of integrity and courage in a world where shadows lurked in every corner. One afternoon, while training a group in marksmanship, a young soldier approached her hesitantly. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Alina nodded. "Anything." The soldier's eyes were bright with curiosity. "What keeps you going when everything's against you?" Alina looked at her tattoo, then back at the soldier. "The knowledge that I'm part of something bigger. That every sacrifice, every scar, is a step toward a better world. And that sometimes the strongest battles are fought in silence." The young soldier smiled, inspired. Later that evening, Alina visited her father's grave. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the weathered stone. She traced the inscription with her fingers, a reminder of a man who had given everything for honor. "I carry your legacy," she whispered, "and I'll keep fighting." As she stood there, a gentle breeze stirred the leaves as if answering. Alina turned away, feeling the weight of the past lift just a little, because the story wasn't over. It never would be. Her tattoo, once a secret, now a beacon. Her courage, a legacy. Her journey, an inspiration. And through every battle, every sacrifice, one truth remained. She stood tall,